137th Psalm. The first 4 verses will be the basis of our discussion. By the rivers of Babylon there we sat down, yea, we wept when we remembered Zion. We hanged our harps upon the willows in the midst thereof. For there they that carried us away captive required of us a song, and they that wasted us required of us mirth, saying, sing us one of the songs of Zion. How shall we sing the Lord's song in a strange land? The subject that we're using tonight is without a song. Without a song. Here they were, these proud Hebrews in Babylon, some of whom had been courtiers, government officials, rabbis, teachers, scholars, leaders in intellectual and religious thought, leaders in philosophical thought, sages. Here they were, prisoners of war, forced to reside in a strange pagan land. Their conquerors posed a request. Said they, when they had sufficiently observed these Hebrews, had appraised them for what they were, knew them to be scholars and experts in political science and priests and thinkers. But the Babylonians had all of these things themselves. They had their scholars, they had their astrologists, they had their scientists, they had their philosophers. They had built up a credible government. They had the great court of Hammurabi's that they could boast of, the wisdom of which has survived all the ages. And they weren't particularly worried about the Jews along that line. But what they were concerned about is getting them to do something that they really did appreciate. They possessed the ability to do something that they regarded to be unique. And so they petitioned them. Said they, sing us one of Zion's songs. I wish you'd pray with me just a little while. Sing for us one of Zion's songs. Now, the Jews or the Hebrews refused. They refused on the ground that they didn't think that the request in its fulfillment would be timely. They thought that it would be a bit disorderly and out of place. And so they refused this Babylonian request. Said they, how can we sing the songs of Zion in a strange land? I take the position that they should have sung. Yes, they were in a strange land. Yes, they were among so-called heathens. Yes, the situation in which they found themselves was an unfamiliar situation and possibly was not conducive to inspire them into spiritual expression. But even under adverse circumstances, you ought to sing sometime. And not only sing some of Zion's songs. I don't believe you know what I'm talking about. You see, there's something universal about singing. Something that has in it a universal appeal. Sometimes you don't have to know what the words of the singer may be, but you appreciate the melody and the music of the song. It has a universal appeal. And singing can do a lot of things for you. Many messages can be conveyed through a song. You see, we have patriotic songs when we want to express our loyalty and devotion to land and country. We have songs of valor and bravery. Then we have songs of happiness, and then songs of sadness. We have songs of confusion and trial, burden and tribulation. Then we have songs of peace and a brighter day. We have songs of promise. We have songs of God and destiny. We have songs of life and death. So that any message that you really want to get over, you can get it over in a song. Isn't it so? I noticed that some of the West Indians in one of the British possessions, some of the inhabitants of the country adopted the practice of campaigning for office through song. What they couldn't get up on the stage and say, they could sing. So it's true with singing sometimes. Some things you can't say, you can sing. Isn't it so? So I think the Jews or the Hebrews should have sung in that strange land. In that strange land. It is said that Roland Hayes on one occasion went to Berlin, Germany to sing in one of the great and celebrated music houses of Berlin. At the time, Nazism was arising. And some of them did not want this Georgia Negro to come and stand on the stage where their great immortals had stood and sing. It is said that on the day of the concert and about the time that Roland Hayes was to go on stage, his handlers and his attendants took him to the rear of the building and spirited him in. And then when they called for him, he walked out on the stage. And when he walked out on the stage, those who resented him and those who opposed him went into howls and hisses to make it impossible for him to sing. He stood there for a long time with his eyes closed and his arms folded. And then when apparently the noise would not subside, he just kept his eyes closed and his arms folded and began singing in that great tenor voice, Lord, thou art my peace. Thou art my peace. And that great voice began to rise and soar above the noise and such that great building. And then hisser and howler after howler began to get quiet and listen to that great voice. Eventually, the whole house became quiet and listened, was moved and thrilled and inspired by this great artist. And when he had finished, that same crowd that intended to make it impossible for him to sing, many of them ran to the stage and took him upon their shoulders and marched down the aisle, hailing and acclaiming him. I'm trying to tell you what can be done in a song. I don't believe you know what I'm talking about. Thou art my peace. Why, take for example, as I come toward the close, the Negro found himself in a similar situation during his slave experiences. And frequently he was called upon to sing. And he always complied. He never missed a chance to sing because it was his song and the gospel that he heard by those ancient ministers that kept hope alive in his heart. I think they should have sung. The story is told about by Dr. Mark Miles Fisher about an old woman either in the Carolinas or in Georgia. In those days, when a great English preacher, the brother of John Wesley, came over to preach, many of the Negroes wanted to see them or see this great preacher. Frequently they could sit in the church, at least in the balcony, if the balcony was not crowded, if most of the regular members were on the main floor. But on this particular occasion, the place was packed, and they stood on the outside looking through the window, listening at this English preacher preach the gospel. When the sermon was over and the invitation was extended, one old lady walked in the front door and walked down the aisle and took the seat to join the church. Pastor came up and said, "Annie, you can't join this church." She said, "But sir, I got a religion. I've been converted. I felt the power of God here today while the man preached. And I want to join the church." So, "But you can't join this church. Go and join some other church, some of your own churches." And when he insisted that she could not join, she went on down the aisle, mumbling to herself, saying, "I'm going to tell God one of these days how you treat me," as tears rolled down her cheeks. It is said that those who were looking in the window began to sing a song, as the old lady's name was Mary, saying, "Oh Mary, don't weep, don't mourn. Pharaoh's army got drowned. Mary, don't weep, and then no more." Think of the message that is wrapped up in that song. I think that everybody ought to have a song. I think that Israel should have sung down in Babylon. I don't believe you know what I'm talking about. It is said that during these slave experiences, showing on the other hand where the Negroes took just the other position as compared with the Hebrews in their oppression. It is said that many times when they had no suits, that their clothes were made out of the cotton sacks that they put the cotton in, a straight long garment. And very often when they could not eat the meal or the food that they prepared for their masters, many times corn mush was boiled and placed in troughs, and they were made to eat that while they had served a banquet table that was full of delicacies and the finest foods. But he didn't grow disheartened and he didn't lose hope. He began singing, "I'm going to put on a long white robe one of these days. I can't do it now, but I'll do it one of these days. And then though I may eat from troughs now, and my meal may be rough and of the poorest kind, and completely stripped of vitamins, etc. But one of these days, I'm going to sit at the feasting table. One of these days. Though I have no shoes to wear now. I have no shoes to wear now. I must go by afoot now. But one of these days, I'm going to put on my golden slippers. One of these days. Oh, yes. I must work from sun to sun. I don't believe you know what I'm talking about. And I must do the hardest labor without even a thought of compensation for my toil. But I'm going to rest and not get tired one of these days. I wish you knew what I was talking about. I'm trying to tell you that the Negro is saying, through his darkness, through his trial, and through his tribulation, he's saying, it is said that very often when he had no thought of ever having the chance to ride in one of the great chariots or surreys that he saw his bosses riding around in, he dreamed of a day. Oh, no wonder somebody said, you can't keep me from dreaming. And you can't keep me from singing. Isn't it so? He stood in the fields of Georgia, of Alabama and Tennessee, and the Virginias and other places, and he saw them gliding along merrily and comfortably. And he dreamed and then sang, why, swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. I can't ride in a chariot now. My situation prevents me from riding now. But one of these days, a chariot is going to swing low for me. I don't believe you know what I'm talking about. Very often, when he was forbidden to congregate, not so much on the basis, on the grounds that the bosses were anti-religious or did not want them to engage in religion, but they feared that this congregating would create unity and give rise to thoughts of liberation. And so they forbade them, in many cases, not to congregate. But very often, one of the trusted ones would decide on a place where they were going to meet under the shade of the night. And the password was, as he went from one slave hut to another, steal away to Jesus. We ain't got long to stay here. I don't believe you know what I'm talking about. I think that we ought to say, no matter how troublesome our situations become, no matter how trying our situations become, I think we ought to sing. You see, Israel had not grown universal minded at this time. She was still hampered by her nationalistic thinking. She was still hampered by many inhibitions that were inherent in their culture. And they wouldn't sing. But I'm sure they could have done a lot for Babylon if they had sung. I'm sure that Babylon would have been better off if they had heard that Israel's God was a God that created the world, that scooped out the seas with the palm of his hand, and who held the waters, as it were, in the skirts of his garment. I'm sure Babylon would have been helped to know that Israel's God was a God who loved his people, who not only loved his people, but who looked out for them and who made ways for them. And those of you who know our God tonight know that he will make a way. And you know, people have people have ways of segregating certain communities and segregating certain people, and who act like their religion is too good to go to certain places. But thank God that as I think on the life of Jesus, there was no place that our God and our Christ would not go. In the harlot's home, in the publican's home, in sinners' home, wherever people were, our Christ and our Lord and Master went there. And not only did he go there, he did things after he went there. And I want to tell you tonight that's listening to me, why when you got so much religion that you can't mingle with people, and that you're afraid of certain people, let me tell you, you got too much religion. But sometimes you can't reach some people without coming close to them. Oh Lord, you have to get near them and let them understand you, and tell them that God loved them, and that not only does God love them, but let them know that you love them also. You can't reach people if they don't believe that you're interested in them. If they don't believe that you love them and that you're concerned about them. If you give them the impression that you feel that you're better than they are, I doubt whether you'll ever be able to reach them. Oh Lord, and I don't think that the Lord intended for it to be that way anyhow. If you're good and if you are satisfied, if you dug deep and sounded well, if you got your house on a solid rock, you ought to trust your religion anywhere. Isn't it so? Oh Lord, if your religion can't carry you by the bar, you don't have too much anyway. I don't even know what I'm talking about tonight. Oh Lord, if your religion won't hold you, when you come face to face with temptation, good God, my Lord, you don't have enough anyway, and you need to try it out and see what it'll do anyhow. Oh Lord, if you don't know whether you're strong or not, you ought to test yourself sometime. I don't even know what I mean tonight. Anyway, I'm going to sing the songs of Zion. Oh Lord, I know the time when people didn't mind singing them at home, in the streets, in the field, anywhere. Oh Lord, early in the morning, you can hear some old child of God, oh Lord, whose voice would ride the morning air, sing, I love the Lord, he heard my cry, and then pitied every groan. Yes, long as I live, while trouble ride, I'll hasten to his throne. Oh Lord, you could hear him out across the field early in the morning saying, yes, oh Lord, while on Jordan, stormy banks I stand, and cast a wishful eye to Canaan's fair and happy land, and where my possessions lie. Oh Lord, I can hear them sing, amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found, was blind, but now I see. Oh Lord, you ought to sing, every heart ought to have a song, and every lip ought to proclaim the goodness of God by way of song. Oh Lord, I don't want to lose my song, and I don't want to be in that crowd that's without a song. Oh Lord, I want to sing, and in my song tell people that he is a way provider, and that my God is a way maker. Oh Lord, everywhere, the world know through my song that he's a lamp in a dark place. Oh, Lord, everywhere I go, everywhere I go, I want to let the world know that when I'm a lost sheep, my Lord is a shepherd, and he holds my hand through my song. I want to keep on singing, great God. I want to keep on singing until somebody knows, yeah, that my rock in a weary land is salvation to every lost soul. Oh,